Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Everyday Betting show where we go over everything betting. Tomorrow is going to be Thursday, so that means we have golf, and we're going to be going over the Tour Championship. Got Matt Cooper, talked to him earlier. Going to play back the interview I had with him and go over some players to watch for this event. He also gives a little bit of advice for the European Tour, so some good stuff there from Matt Cooper. Going over some of the odds just real quickly. So the format for this golf event is a little bit different. You see Dustin Johnson is heavily favored at like plus 188, which is insane to think about. But then you take a step back and realize that this format is very different in terms of players having a certain amount of strokes entering this event. So that's why Dustin Johnson's so heavily favored. You got Jon Rahm. He's like plus 200, I think. I'm pulling up the odds now on 888. And let's see. Yeah, so we got Dustin Johnson plus 188, Rahm plus 275. And so kind of tiptoeing around the two favorites, kind of asked Matt what other players there are to watch in terms of winning this event and what other factors to watch. Bermuda grass was the big thing that popped up for him. Bermuda grass is going to be the grass that is played at this particular event this weekend. And there's quite a few players Matt is fond of. Webb Simpson comes to mind, who play well on Bermuda grass. And then going contrary to that, you got players who don't play well on Bermuda grass, such as Colin Morikawa. So Matt goes over all that, and we started actually with Rory McIlroy because Rory McIlroy has won this event a few times in his career. East Lake is a very popular course on the tour, so a lot of players have success there, Rory being one of them. Looking at Rory's odds to win, just pull them up real quick. Rory is plus 2,200, which is pretty good. But there was an interesting strategy Matt had in mind, and because of the way things are, I guess, with the format and whatnot, maybe looking outside of Rory to win is a good bet. Maybe explore the market around Rory, leader after one round, perhaps. So Matt had some interesting takes on Rory for this event, if anyone's thinking about betting him at plus 2,200. And here's what he had to say.
I think Rory's got a bit of a chance this week, but maybe not to actually win the whole thing. Because we might just do a very swift explanation of what happens this week. So, as of last year, the Tour Championship has changed, and to recognise the fact that this tournament comes at the end of an entire season. So the entire season up to the Wyndham Championships, players accumulate points, and then in the next two events, which are the playoffs, they accumulate more points in those weeks until they get to the stage where they arrive at this week. And then those points that they've accrued all the way through the season are translated into starting strokes. So Dustin Johnson, who leads the rankings, begins this week on 10 under par.
And that's why his odds are so high at plus 188 entering, based off of what Matt just explained with the point system.
Jon Rahm, who's second, starts at 8 under, and then it goes down the top five players in the rankings are at minus 10, minus 8, minus 7, minus 6, minus 5, and then the next five sort of tranches of rankings go further back. So Rory starts this week at 3 under, which is 7 shots off the lead of Dustin Johnson. Now, it's not, I wouldn't say it's out of the realms of possibility that he can make those shots above Dustin Johnson. In fact, last year he would have got, because Dustin Johnson absolutely bumped last year. He finished 30th in the field. But it's not just, he hasn't just got to make up 7 shots on Dustin Johnson, he's got to make up 5 on Jon Rahm, 4 on Justin Thomas, 3 on Webb Simpson. So that's difficult now. But as we know, since they came out of lockdown, Rory has started on the same score as everybody else, and he hasn't beaten them. So the notion that he's been given hurdles to jump and obstacles to hop through in which to win this week makes it a little bit more difficult. However, he played very well in the first 32 36 holes last week at Olympia Field. He wasn't involved when it looked inevitable and probably should be that we just mentioned Dustin Johnson and John Rahm's spectacular finish to last week's event. Both of them holding double breakers. Dustin Johnson was brilliant to force the playoff. John Rahm's was even better to actually win it. But Rory played very well for 36 holes there, the best he's played since they came out of lockdown. So, and he's going to a course he really, really likes. And I had a little look. So he won. He's won 2 of the last 3 times he's played East Lake, and the other time he played in the last group with Tiger Woods in the final round. So he's basically been in the hunt for those 3 years. I had a little look, and out of the 30 players in the field, Rory had the best score, which he sometimes tied with other people 3 times. The second best on another 3 occasions. Only one player shot lower than him. On another 3 occasions, only 2 players went lower than him. So a lot of his rounds in the last 3 times he's played East Lake have been really low rounds. So the way I've supported Rory this week is he's 14 to 1 each way, which of course is plus 1,400 for you guys, to shoot the lowest round in round 1, not counting starting strokes. And that ultimately I thought that's a better way of
real quick, just going to cut Matt off there. That's kind of what alluding to with Rory. I think I said leading after round 1. No, having the lowest score after round 1 is possible because he does seem to do well at this particular course for 36 holes, as it seems. And to overcome the stroke lead of Dustin Johnson, John Rahm, Justin Thomas, this is why you shouldn't really be looking at Rory to win or lead after round 1, but perhaps scoring the lowest round 1 total would be not a bad bet, honestly. Again, this is a different format in PGA, and so it's going to take a different approach when you're betting this event due to the stroke format for this. So also talked to Matt about Webb Simpson because he's very fond of Webb Simpson as it is. And then you add that with the fact that Webb Simpson kicks a whole lot of butt on Bermuda grass, which is what East Lake is. And so I asked Matt what his thoughts were on Webb Simpson. Let me see if I can find his odds real quick. Webb Simpson plus 900. That's the 4th best odds. Right behind John Rahm, Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas. And so Matt was actually not keen on Webb Simpson, which surprised me because he's very big on Webb and the Bermuda grass factor as well. And so this is what Matt had to say on why maybe, as good as Webb is for this event, why you might not want to consider Webb Simpson.
Yeah, well, he is a spectacularly good player on Bermuda grass. He's had 2 wins this year at Scottsdale and also Harbour Town. He's got another couple of, I think in his last 10 starts on Bermuda grass, he's got 2 victories, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and he's never finished outside the top 20 in those last 10 starts. Wow. So he really knows what he's doing. But I have one concern with Webb Simpson. I think what's also quite interesting with Webb Simpson, this has been a particularly busy period of golf for the players. So they had Muirfield Village, which was major championship style setup. Then they had the PGA Championships. They had the St Jude Invitational. And lots of them then took the Wyndham off because they knew that we had 3 FedEx Cup playoff events, this being the last of them. Then there's 1 week off next week and then the US Open. Right. So the top players had to sort of be very careful with what they did with their scheduling. Yeah.
Now you see this a lot in tennis where players they'll even enter tournaments and then withdraw if they feel like their body is not keeping up or if they feel like they need rest. And so this is kind of something similar to that where the best players kind of had to pick and choose how they schedule things. And so this is kind of what Matt explains with Webb Simpson in that regard.
Webb Simpson adores the Wyndham Championship, so much so that his daughter is called Wyndham. He also had brilliant results there, so he desperately wanted to play that. And something had to give. And what gave with him is that he missed last week at Olympia Fields. I think there's two reasons why that's actually quite a good thing. One is that I've looked at the last 8 winners of the Tour Championships, bearing in mind that 7 of those were under normal circumstances rather than the new strange circumstances. But all of those 8, not one of them had a top 5 finish the week before, and only 2 of them finished in the top 10. Oh, wow. So it's almost as if when you have the FedEx Cup playoffs, there's a lot of action, not a massive amount of pressure, but it's almost as if you need coming into this week. They need to be a little bit the horse racing term will be off the bridle a little bit, and I think there's a double reason why it might also be worth being careful at the very least about people who did well last week, and that's that Olympia Fields is a very, very difficult test. The greens were bone hard, and so it was not necessarily a physically difficult test, but mentally the players were having to be very much on their game. They were fighting par all the time. Yeah. So it's a possibility that they're going to come from there quite tired emotionally and mentally, and Webb Simpson skipped it. So I think that's a really big plus for him, as is the fact that he's got some good results at East Lake, but I also think there is a bit of possibly, something I'm a bit wary of. So he's got 4th and a 5th in 7 starts at East Lake, but all of that is based, unsurprisingly perhaps, on really, really good putting stats. Right. However, he's not been so good when it comes to actually finding the greens. He's not been bad, but when you bear in mind that there are only 30 players in the field, he's got a best ranking of 9th for that. Now, strokes gained haven't been in existence too long for us to pick up all the trends on that. But again, I think it's reflected in that again, his putting stats are just absolutely fantastic. Yeah. But approaches, like off the tee, he was last in the field last year. He was 23rd for approaches. He was 29th for getting from tee to green. He was 17th the year before, which means he's in the back half of that. Right. It makes me a little bit. So I find myself a bit torn. I'm a big fan of Webb Simpson. I'm a big fan of him when he's putting on Bermuda grass greens. I'm a little bit wary that there is something about him when he's trying to get from tee to green at East Lake that doesn't quite fit his eye.
Yeah, so Webb Simpson's concern right now for Matt is that it's pretty much everything outside of his putting game. Tee to green, there's a lot of concern in his game, especially at this course. And he does well here, but it's because his putting is so fantastic, whereas his approach game is not. And so that kind of becomes the issue with taking a shot at Webb Simpson plus 900. Although you see Webb, you see plus 900, you see those are the 4th best odds. You would think that equates to a good value bet, and it might, but this is sort of the reason Matt gave to kind of keep an eye on Webb. If you're confident in him, then by all means do what you got to do, but his approach game is something to think about in terms of betting this.
However, I wouldn't. I think if you can find a smart way of following him, if you can find somebody who you think's not going to perform very well this week, he could be somebody to utilise in a match bet.
Yeah, and then I know I mentioned that Morikawa is kind of the opposite on Bermuda greens, such as Webb Simpson being good. And so Morikawa, is he a good bet, despite, the fact he doesn't play very well on this grass? Is he someone you should take because of his great play this season? I mean, the guy has won a lot of tournaments, a lot of big tournaments, and he's still very, very young. But Morikawa on Bermuda grass might not be such a great idea.
If he's having... I'll tell you what's quite interesting. Morikawa, of course, has done very well in his career, but most of his, in fact, all of his, with a few exceptions, he's much better on playing grass greens. I don't think he's got a top 5 on Bermuda grass greens yet. I mean, it's a very small sample in his case, but it might be something to bear in mind going forward. That I think we'd all agree that is probably Morikawa's weak point. He's improved very quickly over this summer, possibly because he had a few problems early on in it. So he's worked very hard on it, but at the moment he hasn't yet quite found the secret of Bermuda grass green. So that's one thing to go against.
Yeah, and I mean his odds are plus 2,200 with 888 to win this event. And again, Matt said, well, the sample size is small, but he's yet to do it. And so I'm telling you, the big difference here for betting this golf event is the marginal difference, the stroke difference that players are getting. Because as mentioned, some of these guys are actually worth an appeal with low value, but you have to beat Dustin Johnson with the stroke lead already. You have to beat Jon Rahm with the stroke lead already. You have to beat Justin Thomas. You have to beat the best players in the world. It's not like you're going out there and you're taking on a Louis Oosthuizen. No offense, but he's not the top of the PGA class right now. And so these are the best of the best playing with almost an advantage, a spread going into this. And so that's why it makes it tricky. And so Morikawa not even seeing a top 5 on Bermuda grass yet, although small sample size, low odds. He has a lot of adversity to overcome, as all the golfers below Webb Simpson do. Probably avoidable bet in this case. And we've talked a lot about the Bermuda grass factor. So I asked Matt, how much of a factor is Bermuda grass for this event? And then it kind of tied into a long shot bet that we both actually agreed on, and that's Billy Horschel. Billy Horschel is a name to keep an eye on for this event. And so with the Bermuda grass becoming a factor at East Lake, you have Billy Horschel in terms of a long shot bet. How does that all tie together? And so this is kind of what we discussed with Matt.
Well, unfortunately, in one sense, I think we'll probably pick the guy who's got the best record. Simpson's got the best record on them in recent times. Okay. Morikawa is definitely a sort of asterisk. I think probably Victor Hovland would be in that sphere a little bit as well.
So Victor Hovland also struggles on Bermuda grass.
For instance, I know I've looked at Billy Horschel against Victor Hovland in a match bet, and Horschel leads Hovland 6-3 when they play the second tournament on.
Yeah, so look at matchup bets maybe for Billy Horschel in this regard, because again, it's a huge long shot bet for him to win this event, but he can win matchups against certain players, which will see reasonable odds in terms of both winning and spending.
Bermuda grass.
You beat me to it.
Billy Horschel. And it's interesting, for what it's worth, Billy Horschel has won, finished second, and finished 7th on this golf course. Those are the only 3 results. So the guy clearly, he likes pretty much everything about this golf course.
I was going to ask,
pretty impressive.
Is he the long shot bet for this course at plus, 20,000 on 888 Sport?
Yeah. You can get really, really big odds on him. And yeah, I think he's very much a possibility because, the thing with him is he's got previous about understanding what the pressure of this sort of week is. And also, to some extent, he's got like a free run at it. And with those huge odds, you're sort of like accepting that, he might have a thrilling time of it through 2 rounds. And then if he just keeps pushing, the pressure will come to bear.
Right.
In some ways, it's a fascinating thing to imagine. Last year, it kind of worked out okay. The bloke who played the best golf ultimately won the tournament. But it's more or less inevitable that at one point, somebody is going to shoot the lowest 72-hole score, and they're not going to win the ultimate prize.
Right.
And that's going to make a lot of people think, hang on, is this quite right? Which is not to say that I know a lot of people really, really hate this format. I think, especially for punters, because it makes the week quite difficult and a bit messy and not as sort of straightforward as we like. A little bit of me kind of gets it from the point of view of if you're going to have playoffs, you give a purpose to it a little bit, and this gives it a bit more purpose. I'm still a little bit dubious about whether it quite works, but I think it could be quite fun to go for some. I read a very persuasive argument that somebody else put forward, which is that this year. He's not been absolutely firing since lockdown, but he's played okay, and I don't think he's frightened of this sort of thing. He's also got very close to winning the season-ending tournament on the European Tour a couple of times. One time, very, very close, and it was only Matthew Fitzpatrick that got in front of him. So he knows what the pressure of this sort of thing is. And,
yeah, so Tyrell Hatton, the name to keep an eye on, understanding the pressure of this event, having been through it a lot, and has not been playing overly well since COVID break and since coming back from that, but has been consistent and playing well, good enough since coming back. Tyrell Hatton has really found his name near the top of the leaderboard a lot. Like you said, hasn't won anything, but if you're talking in terms of top 5, top 10, top 20, he is very much consistently in that range with many of the events since coming back from COVID.
Yeah, he's another one who can have a real crack at it from a distance. And let's bear in mind, all it really needs is Dustin Johnson and John Rahm failed to break 70 on Friday. Worth bearing in mind, everybody starts a day later this week. They only have not break 70, and it was more or less inevitable that 3 or 4 just behind them will do so. And all of a sudden, the leaderboard will have closed up. So I'm certainly not against suggesting. The interesting thing would be if somebody can go really low from the back, somebody like Horschel or Hatton. Brendan Todd maybe, who keeps getting attention all the time. On the flip side of that, he doesn't quite last all the way through a tournament. But if something does go really, really late, then you could have huge odds on somebody who's lying sort of 5th, 6th heading into the weekend, which would be quite good fun.
Yeah. So I think overall, Billy Horschel matchup bets, way to go. It just seems, he plays very well here, and so that should be considered. For him to win at plus, there's a reason he's plus 20,000. There's no way Billy Horschel's going to win this. I mean, he could. I don't want to say no way. It's like 1 in a million, one of those things. So I think the matchup bets for Billy Horschel is something that a punter should eye. And as Matt alluded to, it's very difficult, this event. This format, but again, it gives an added feel to the playoffs. Like these events are worth more and they mean more because of the playoff factor. But it's hard to convince everybody, that, especially golf purists and bettors. So moving on, Xander Schauffele has done very well at this event too, and his name caught my eye. Let me see if I can find his odds real quick with 888 Sport plus 2,200. It seems like there's a couple of names in the plus 2,200 range worth considering here. And so Xander Schauffele, is he a guy that you should be considering to win this outside of the favorites, Dustin Johnson and John Rahm and who the hell else, Justin Thomas, those 3. So Xander Schauffele, this is Matt's breakdown on him if you're thinking about betting him.
He would be my man to sort of break from the pack.
Okay.
The reason being that I think he is on the one hand, it's slightly cockeyed because he's starting from the same position as Rory McIlroy, and Rory McIlroy's got a slightly better record at East Lake. Schauffele does what he has, though. He's gone very, very low to get himself into contention at tournaments, which I think at least one round will probably have to be very, very low.
Okay.
It's not to say that Rory's not capable of it. I'm also trying to factor in the fact that Rory hasn't quite fired since the resumption of play. Schauffele, he won it on debut here. He was second last year, and he was 7th in between 1-2-7, exactly the same record as Billy Horschel, of course. He's got a really sort of solid game here as well. So he's twice ranked second for tee to green, so there's no difficulty getting onto the green. And his putting stat, he's always been in the top half of it. So that makes an interesting contrast with Webb Simpson. That more of his game is well suited to taking on the course. The other thing with Xander Schauffele is that he's like unbelievably consistent. He took 15 of his last 17 starts in the top 25s. Now, if he gets if he finishes 25th and maintains that trend this week, it won't be quite so impressive with only 30 people in the field. But nonetheless, that's pretty good going.
That is a hell of a trend. Xander Schauffele, 15 of 17 events. He has seen a top 25 result. Top 20. Look at that market. I'll do it for you with 888. So they're not going to be exact odds with what you use, but minus 150 for top 10. So don't think they might not have top 20, unfortunately. Nope, doesn't look like it with 888. Most sportsbooks might have top 20 odds. They should. Definitely seen them a bunch. I'm actually surprised 888 doesn't. They have winner, top 3, top 5, top 10. So I guess just check with your sportsbook if they do have top 20 odds. Xander Schauffele, 15 of his last 17 top 25. That's astounding. I know I've definitely seen events with top 30 odds, top 40 odds. And so just be sure to check your sportsbook for the market of top 20 because Xander Schauffele, that's a hell of a trend. That's pretty much a layup at that point. So, but at minus 150 for top 10, he might be a little bit pricey, definitely crossing into the 200 range. So keep that in mind as well.
The thing that always to bear in mind with Xander Schauffele is he really likes a big event. So, he's picked up 6 top 10s in the majors, got close to some of them. He's finished like on his second on debut with the Players. So he's got a really good record in this. He's won a World Golf Championship. I think he's a fellow who thrives when something's big. He's also won the Tournament Champions, which is the tournament that starts the season. I think he's somebody who likes the course and he likes the notion of all the best players in the world being around.
Yeah. So consider it. Xander Schauffele. Good player to consider. Before we wrap it all up, we just kind of do a recap real quick. Rory McIlroy has performed well at this event, this course. Not sure about taking him to win. However, Rory to have the lowest score at the end of round 1 might be something worth considering. Because again, this format it makes betting a little bit tricky, so you got to be careful and you got to really tiptoe your way around this. Webb Simpson, there's a little bit of concern from his tee to green approach, but when he's on the green, he's doing damage, and so that's something to consider there. Morikawa has yet to proven he can perform well on this grass type, and so Bermuda grass, this will be a trend working against Morikawa. Beware of him. Billy Horschel presents a good value in this event. He is beyond ridiculous, plus 20,000 to win the event. Probably won't do that, so look towards the matchup markets with Billy Horschel. See if there's a golfer you feel comfortable with taking him over based on the price given and who he's given to face, his opponent. And so consider Billy Horschel as well. Xander Schauffele, another name to consider. The trend of 15 of his last 17 events finishing top 25 is quite astounding. So definitely consider those players. And then, of course, you have your heavy favorites, plus 188, Dustin Johnson. Right under that, you have Jon Rahm, Webb Simpson, plus 900, although we already went over him. And you got Justin Thomas as well. And Justin, it's very easy to forget about Justin Thomas, the way that Dustin Johnson, Jon Rahm have not only been playing this year, but last weekend, the way they, Dustin Johnson forced the playoff with a miraculous birdie, and then Jon Rahm rose that even further with a 66-foot birdie in the playoff to win ultimately. And so it's very much, all the attention going there right now. The odds makers putting, the attention there as well. It's very easy to forget Justin Thomas is a very good golfer and almost seemingly getting no respect in terms of not only betting this event, just in terms of predictions of players who can win. He's plus 500 right now to win. I think a lot of the reason you don't hear Justin Thomas in terms of better bets this weekend is because it's plus 500. You would, at plus 500, probably just be better off leaning towards Johnson or Rahm, or going beyond that a little bit and getting a little bit better value for, Rory plus 2,200, Schauffele plus 2,200. There's other names there with a little bit better value that could challenge Justin Thomas, but don't sleep on him. If you like Thomas, by all means take the plus 500. No argument from me if you fancy him. So there's also another event going on because this is a very fugly golf event. And there's a lot of other events going on. You have Korn Ferry, you have the Japan Tour. I think, the Euro Tour, which, we do have the Euro Tour because Matt talks about it. And so it kind of gives bettors an alternate event for a more structured, more sane, more normal betting market with a golf event because of the way the PGA is doing things with the stroke advantage that players like Dustin Johnson and Jon Rahm are going to have entering. And so if you want something a little bit more normal, Matt suggests the Euro Tour. And before I hit the play button, let him break that down real quick. If you want to take your money to that event instead, because of everything, it's just craziness with the point system and the stroke system entering this event for the PGA. It makes betting somewhat a nightmare. And so I guess the question becomes, do you want to take your money in golfing somewhere else this weekend, or do you want to bet on the event that is a shortened field with the best golfers in the world, the best of the best having stroke advantages already? And so there's another choice, and you can go to a different event and a different tour in general and bet normally and what you're accustomed to betting in terms of golf betting. So if you are like, fuck it, the PGA Tour this week is too complex with the point system, but I want to bet on golf, here's some advice Matt has for you with the Euro Tour.
European Tour.
Okay.
And I'd say that it's actually at a course, Valderrama, that lots of listeners will be well aware of. That also hosted the Ryder Cup back in the 90s. It's the famous Ryder Cup that Seve hosted. He was the captain, and it's a famous Ryder Cup victory for Europeans because it's the week when the European team won because of Seve, but also in spite of him, because he is of course an iconic figure in Europe, and everybody wanted to win for him, but he was also a bit of a pest as a captain. Drove the players up the wall, and so it's often said to think that we won because of him and also in spite of him. I think it's quite an interesting course to have a little look at. It's very tight, it's very tree lined, and it's a little bit tricky. It's designed by Robert Trent Jones Senior, so it's quite quirky. And what tends to happen with this course is that guys that have got a very good short game but are in very good form, also hitting the ball tee to green, tend to excel. So the last 8 winners there had all been finding a lot of greens in their previous starts. So that, and then also in addition to that, lots of them had a reputation for being very good at scrambling around the greens, because it has, in addition to being tight off the tee and tight into the greens are also very small. So
it sounds like you have a very compact course for the European Tour this weekend. Everything seems very tight. You have small greens, and so that's kind of why this event favors some of the players that play the greens well, is because it's very compact and very tight, and so it makes players who kind of play around the green a little bit. It gives them the advantage.
And also the conditions are quite difficult, thick, rough, often around the greens. So it tends to be quite a tough test, and playing well described tend to do very well. It's no surprise, therefore, that Sergio has won 3 times on this golf course.
Yeah.
Good news for the field is he's not playing there this week. If you want to watch it, it will be very worth watching, because the young Dane Rasmus Højgaard, who's 19, he won for a second time last year.
His favourite
on the European Tour. So he's a name that there's a pretty good chance you're going to be hearing a lot of, and a golfer you're going to be seeing a lot of in America within the next couple of years. Now he's got a game that should be pretty well suited for the challenge next week, but he's never seen it before. I think Andy Sullivan's got a really good chance. He's an English player who's played the Ryder Cup once. But I just throw two names up there. If Callum Hill is a Scotsman.
Callum Hill.
And he's played very well to Green recently. He's an interesting one because he was in Arizona during lockdown, so he got a little bit of golf out there. His girlfriend lives in Arizona, so he's got a bit of time there. He's finished top 10 in the last 2 starts in the European Tour. And then there's an Australian called Wade Ormsby, who was twice won Hong Kong, who's got very similar conditions to Valderrama. And a lot of people who do well at Hong Kong do very well at Valderrama. And Ormsby himself has already got a top 5 there, so he's quite useful. Ormsby is plus 1,400.
Oh, wow.
Hill is plus 6,600.
Okay.
So in each way, those two are quite good. And if you want to go really mad, there's a Chinese golfer called Ash Wu, who's a 3-time winner on the European Tour in the last few years. And he's like massive odds. He's plus 1,500.
I'm looking.
Huge odds.
I think I passed it.
Yeah, I couldn't find him. I was trying to look for his odds. I couldn't find him. That's how low of odds this golfer might have. So consider him as well if you're deciding to eye the European Tour this weekend.
Yeah, he's a 3-time winner, but he's one of those classic players. He's got a bit of an ugly swing. People tend to overlook him. They don't. But he hasn't played since lockdown, so that's a bit of a negative against him. Yeah. But a positive is that he very nearly won the Dubai Desert Classic this year. And one of the reasons he did that is because his scrambling game was very, very good. And 3-time winner on tour. Yeah,
so it seems like if you're a scrambler, this is the event that you should be betting on. Not if you're a scrambler, but if you fancy scrambler golfers who do very well kind of scrambling around the green. The thick rough that Matt brought up is very interesting as well, because that does play into the skill of a scrambling golfer, one who kind of just throws it around the green and can kind of manage from there. Because when you have thick roughs and you have golfers who don't do well in the thick rough, they have to stay on the fairway. And so it being narrow, tight, and compact makes the golf ball easily susceptible to going off track when you're playing a certain hole. And so I think the thick rough absolutely needs to be considered for this European Tour event as well. So we went over 2 events with Matt. Really great stuff there. If you want to find Matt, you can, and he lets you know right here where you can find his work.
Best place to go for that is Twitter @MattCooperGolf. Yeah, and then there'll be links to everything for that.
Yeah, Matt, he does previews for Unibet, Forbes. He formerly wrote for ESPN, so the guy knows his shit. He's very, very, very good. Very good insight. Knows a ton. I mean, who knows that Webb Simpson named his daughter after an event that he's really good at? I mean, people who follow the sport, obviously. And he knew about Jason Day using a certain cream on his back. I mean, so the guy is very knowledgeable. Definitely take what he's saying and consider it and use it in terms of your game planning for betting this Tour Championship or the European Tour, whichever one you fancy. Now, I know earlier I said that the Tour Championship is tomorrow. It is not. It's actually Friday, so they'll be starting a day later than what golfers are used to starting, which is on Thursday. So this event will actually be on September 4th, not the 3rd. What starts tomorrow then? A few things are tomorrow. The most notable, depending on where you live in this world. So if you are living east in Europe, you are probably looking forward to UEFA Nations League tomorrow. Very understandable. That begins tomorrow and goes, I think, to the 5th. So it's just a few days. And then the other event that starts tomorrow is more popular for the West, for the Americas, and that would be college football starting. It's not a huge matchup. It's Southern Alabama against Southern Miss. But those are the 2 big events tomorrow, not golf. Golf will be Friday, though. Now, if you're going to bet on the European Tour, definitely tomorrow. But for the Tour Championship, that is going to be Friday. We are not going to do previews for UEFA Nations League. I, for one, just need a break from UEFA, just after Europa and Champions and then qualifying matches. I just need a break from UEFA. But I will be watching those games, and then I haven't even looked at the trends or the odds yet. And then for Southern Miss, South Alabama, I would assume Southern Miss should win that game. But again, I have not looked at any odds. I have not looked at any trends. So don't go into those two events thinking I gave you some advice, because I didn't. Just follow me on Twitter @_TJKC_, and I'll have trends posted usually an hour before an event starts, an hour and a half, give or take, just depending. So I guess that'll be it. You guys be sure to also follow Everyday Sports, Everyday Sports Fan, Everyday Betting as well. Very, very good folks over there. Great people running it. Really hard workers, and proud to have the show associated with people in charge there. And so give them a shout out as well. So that'll do it for me, Everyday Betting. I hope you guys learned something from Matt Cooper with golf this weekend. Again, real quick, Rory McIlroy, first round. Look at him, not to win, but to have the lowest score. Fickle bitch this week with golf. Webb Simpson. Some concerns from the tee to the green approach. Morikawa, some concerns on the grass that they're playing on. Billy Horschel, a great matchup bet to consider this weekend. And Xander Schauffele, a middle-of-the-pack bet to consider. Top 20, definitely. And then the European Tour, if you want to get away from the oddity that is the Tour Championship in terms of betting. Thank you guys so much. Hope to see you next time. Go out there, and gals, go out there, make some money, make some smart bets. Until next time, see you.